So welcome everyone to the inaugural REITIUM podcast. I'm so excited to have Cynthia Aasen, the CEO of IRRealty. And REITIUM once a month is going to sit down with innovators and experts in the industry and talk about the current and future trends in both real estate and the private securities market. Now, Cynthia, we've known each other for a few months here, but I actually met you about a year and a half ago at a Western Wealth wine and cheese investor event. And just in the recent few weeks, we've been working on something very exciting. So thank you so much for being a guest on our first podcast.
Thank you, Michael. I'm so excited. I think it was meant to be. I've always believed in technology and how it's going to make life for everyone much easier and more productive, and it's very efficient. And I think your team has really shown me a great path for our growth in the real estate industry.
Thank you so much. And I think one of the things that I see is that at this time, innovation really takes multiple teams. It's a cross-collaborative effort, and it needs the new incumbents like REITIUM to work with the tried and true industry veterans. And so we're really excited and grateful for this opportunity to go forward. And I think the next few months are going to be very exciting for us to really accelerate this digital transformation in the industry. But as we talk about that, tell us how you have a very storied journey. Tell us how you got into real estate. Tell us about how you got into real estate investing, and then bring us all the way to today.
So just to keep it really high level, I graduated with a commerce and a finance degree, and I was very interested in going into the stocks and bonds and the brokerage industry. That was way back in the day, 1980s, and women, there was a lot of glass ceilings. And my job, I was very fortunate actually to work for a very large bond trader at the time, but I was his executive assistant in it. There wasn't much room to go. But during that time, I got my first computer, and I wanted to make his system, to push it to technology. So there was a Tiger software, and one of the participants in that was Don Matrick from Electronic Arts, and I think Don's done very well in the technology sector. And so, I got to participate. I worked with their team to beta test sort of digitizing and working through trades, stock market trades, long before the day you see now there's a lot of screens, everything's automated, computer trades. There's really a lot of technology in that sector. So fast forward to today, I moved into the real estate world just because I wanted to be able to grow and build my business. I worked with the team there. We focused on absentee owners and a specific market space. Multi-urban residential buildings were a tax strategy by the federal government, and they did purpose-built rentals. So we worked with those owners to sell their properties. So really what it was is it set the grounds for me to love investment real estate. I saw how people built wealth. I loved it, and I wanted to kind of always be in that more investing side, not residential, buying your home, the emotional side, but more how do you make money in real estate.
Amazing. And so you, with this, been around the Vancouver area. You are from Saskatchewan, and you came out here. And tell us about how you've seen the market change over all those years.
When I came out, a very interesting story. When I first moved here, I bought my first apartment. One of the people that I had met, a group of people, they were involved in condo conversions, which is buying a purpose-built rental and converting it into condos so people could buy individual units. And so I remember being very excited, saying to my parents, I'm going to buy my first condo, and it's $42,500. $42,500 today's world in the West End.
Oh my God.
Right by Stanley Park.
Wow. What year was this?
1986.
Amazing.
So I phoned them and they went, what? Like houses in Saskatchewan sold for less than what I was going to pay for this 550 square foot apartment. So
things haven't changed, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They were not that impressed or that excited and weren't that encouraging, but I went ahead anyway. And today I still own that condo, and to me it's quite an amazing testament to the power of building wealth in real estate.
Amazing.
It's worth a lot more than $42,000.
Amazing. And so at that time, you've seen the market, you've had that experience. Tell us about how you went from working on these different teams to then setting up your own business, IRRealty, and what that does and what that means to you.
Well, interestingly enough, one of the principals I work with today, with two of the companies that I represent to my clients, Western Canadian Properties Group and Western Wealth Capital, is Dave Steele. And in 1990, Dave Steele formed a company called International Properties Group, and I worked with him, for him, and sold their condo conversion units as investment condos. And they developed what I would call a true turnkey passive investment, where people could buy condos in Edmonton, in Toronto, in Calgary, even in Scottsdale. And they could own them, and their company actually built the after asset management that we see today in a lot of what they're doing in his current companies. So it's just been an evolution. It's been very successful for all my clients. They've owned these, they never had anything to do with them, they're very passive, and their tenant pays off the mortgage. Pretty soon they own the property, it's generating income, and they really don't have to manage it. So that's our program. And so it's kind of every time they do something, and as the years we evolve it, we tweak it, we make it a bit better experience for the client.
That's amazing. And tell us about, do you really enjoy helping other people grow wealth, and how, what process do you go through there? Like, are you on the educational side? Are you an advisor, a financial advisor side? What happens there?
Absolutely. I mean, I believe education is the key to making informed decisions. And I want people to understand what they're buying, why they're buying it, and be able to own the investment. We have three things in our life. We have time, we have money, and we have peace of mind. And everyone's different in that capacity. And my job is to help them stand the test of time in real estate, because it takes a long time. It's not a get rich overnight, which I think there are some people promoting that. It doesn't happen that way. But if you set yourself up for success, which means you understand the risk factors, you know how to finance it, you're going to be able to hold it. And holding real estate, if I could own all the real estate I've ever bought, I probably wouldn't be sitting in this room. I'm just kidding. I probably would. Because truly I love getting young people in particular. I get frustrated. One of the reasons that I was attracted to your platform, REITIUM's platform, was that, you're going to allow everyone to stop spending money on the wrong things, start investing in the right things.
Amazing. And, that actually gives me a great segue. What is some of the advice you could give to new people, let's say young people specifically, wanting to get into the real estate market, wanting to get into real estate investing? Because I think, we talk about the avocado toast, we talk about the daily luxuries, because, young people feel they can't amass enough wealth to get in. But I think, there could be some little tidbits you can give them about how to start. It might be a daunting task, but what are the steps they can take today?
I think, first of all, financial plan and budget. Start tracking what you spend your money on, and you will be amazed at how much money you blow on things that just aren't really important. And I think that's really important. And always think about every purchase as an after-tax purchase. So if you're in the 30% tax bracket and you pay $1 for something, you're really paying $1.30 for that item. You're not paying $1. So start paying yourself first. Save your money. That means you're paying yourself. So every day you walk to work and you think, I've got to go to work today. If you start putting your money to work sooner, and that's by investing and saving, you're not going to have to keep walking to work. You're going to be able to stop working sooner.
Amazing. And when it comes to real estate specifically, what are the growth areas right now? I think, we see Vancouver getting to these peaks. We see other areas, and obviously they can be continued growth. But where are the areas that maybe you personally are looking specifically, or the groups that you're involved in? Tell us about some of those areas.
I think that you have to look. There's a couple of ways to buy real estate. You can buy, you can hold it, and you can get a mortgage, and that's a great wealth builder as well. But then you really have to focus on price and rent. So what is the rent per your dollar spent? And that's the ratios that you have to look at, and what kind of financing can you get. There's also ways to be creative and do joint ventures or do rent to own. There's all sorts of different strategies that would allow you to buy the real estate. And I do encourage people to learn about these strategies because they're very effective. I've worked with a couple of realtors that have specialized in the rent to own, and it's helped people buy their first home. And it wasn't, they would have never been able to do it. So that's an option. The other option is to look at smaller bite size. And I think that lends itself nicely to REITIUM, which means you can put a little bit of money in and you can be part of a bigger ownership. But these are not direct ownership. So there's both direct, there's a strategy of co-ownership, and then there's the indirect ownership through a limited partnership structure, a trust structure, and all of those are options. I think people should understand what they're buying. So that education part is really important.
Definitely, and I think that is really a great insight into what I'm going to ask you next, which is, when you do sell real estate, one person buy and hold, that's a traditional transaction. But when you're looking at these limited partnerships and selling real estate as an investment, which uses the vehicle of a security, that is selling shares or units to a general public, we then have to talk about the exempt market and how you got into the exempt market. And maybe we can start by just telling listeners, what is the exempt market, which is how you can actually sell securities to the public and how that works, just in a 30,000 feet.
30,000 feet, exempt market is a market that isn't prospectus related, which means on a prospectus they do audited financials. There's a lot of cost to developing a prospectus to give people all the details on that particular company. And the reason companies don't go the prospectus route is time, money, and returns. So typically, these companies are like startup companies. They're starting out, they have a great idea, they may have a proven platform, but they are, I liken it to venture capital is to equity as exempt market securities for real estate, as getting these smaller real estate companies that are doing different types of real estate, either commercial, industrial, or residential, or value add. They're able to start out and get and collect money, and people are participating with them and earning the better returns because there's not as much cost involved in it.
Definitely. And so, as some of the listeners who are coming on, so with the exempt market, the prospectus allows people to then go public, like IPO on a stock market, and then you have the private capital markets. And, talk a bit more about the actual structure of what is an exempt market dealer, and then maybe the brokers, the broker representatives who then actually sell the securities, and a bit more about how that structure works as well.
Well, an exempt market dealer is a company that works with prospectus exempt companies, but their management has skill set either in investment banking, financial, so the management does all the deep dive due diligence, knows what to look for, knows what the risk factors are to be able to make the recommendations to each of the different investors based on those investors' objectives and age, and concentration to a specific sector, concentration to a specific issuer. So what the exempt market dealer and their dealing representatives are doing is making sure the clients, it's know your client, understand your client's objectives, and match the investment and the risk factors to that client.
Amazing. And you actually are now involved with an exempt market dealer named Tri View Capital out of Alberta. They have a great due diligence system, and we will be looking at the REITIUM platform to go forward and look at Western Wealth deals and work with IRR. And tell us about the investor accreditation. So what are some of the limitations or some of the structures that says who is allowed to invest in exempt market securities, and how is that determined in some broad strokes?
So issuers can just issue the agreements, limited partnership agreement, very basic agreements, and then they would be limited. Those issuers' products or exempt market securities would be limited to an accredited investor. So the qualifications for an accredited investor are $1 million net financial assets, which would be cash, stocks, bonds, anything liquid. You have to have $1 million. Or you as an individual make $200,000 a year, and you're expected to continue making $200,000 for the following year. And or family, if you want to do a joint husband, wife, partners, basically you have to make $300,000 gross. And or you have $5 million net worth, less any liability. No liabilities, just net worth. So if you liquidated everything, you'd have $5 million. So that's an accredited investor. But there are eligible investors, and the restrictions, they vary from province to province. I'm not going to get into each of the specifics, but if you're an eligible investor, you have a certain household income and individual income, you have a certain net worth, but you're restricted to the amount that you can invest. You're also restricted to the issuer, because if the issuer doesn't provide a deeper or more comprehensive investment package that's called an offering memorandum, you can't invest in them as an eligible investor.
Definitely, and I think that's some of the things that from the REITIUM perspective we've really dived into, and we wanted to look at how do we get eligible investors, non-accredited investors, people who have less than $75,000 in income, less than $400,000 in net worth. How do we get them to start getting assets onto their personal balance sheet? And so really, as you said, there is a high cost of capital, and I think that cost of capital, what we see is onboarding those investors, doing your know your customer, processing their trades, the cost of putting out these offering memorandums. And I think this gives me a chance to really more talk about what we've seen with the industry, is that there is a high cost of capital just operating the businesses in private securities. And I think, this is how we met and got together. And so, I'm going to ask you, when you were getting into the exempt market from just traditional real estate investing, what are some of the challenges that you saw, and what made you really look for technology solutions to overcome those?
Technology solutions that really gave a much better client experience and streamlined processes without having to have too many people touching it, and it's still being audited and it's still compliant. And when the clients are done, they were like, I actually learned something through that process, versus we'll just sign here or this box. It's very cumbersome. So I think with the automation, it just streamlined it. It gave a much better client experience, and it allowed for much better reporting and compliance from the dealer side as well.
Definitely. And you found REITIUM and you brought this opportunity into this exempt market. Tell us how you found REITIUM and what you saw and what really brought you towards this company.
I saw you at a trade show that we both were attending and were sponsors of, and I was blown away just by the robust platform that had been built to go across board, both internationally and in Canada, and just thought this is the answer for us to grow a business and scale it. I think in any business, costs are lowered when you scale. You get the economies, and the technology to me was, now we can scale, we can give a much better client experience, we can lower the cost for our clients. So ultimately, if I don't spend as much doing the paperwork, I'm going to spend way more on the education side. And I thought that's where I'd rather spend my resources, both time and money.
Amazing. And when we met yourself and IRR and Taylor and Dave Steele gave his presentation at that same trade show, and we were at REITIUM Canada, we were blown away just by how much you guys had dialed in this process of facilitating passive income investments, and then even just how you would be able to go and allow Canadians to invest in the United States. And I want to take a moment for you just to talk maybe about one of the deals that are on the table now, or a deal that's coming up. Talk about how you are in the United States as well.
Right. Well, it's a Canadian company. The two principals, one is David Steele, but the other is Janet LePage. And anyone that Googles Janet will see numerous awards recently. I think Janet's skill set, I've always said there's something about Janet. And Janet is from a culture of giving and doing business on human terms. And so she's developed this amazing company alongside Dave Steele. They have transacted over $1.8 billion in 5 years. They've acquired over 63 multifamily properties in Arizona, Georgia, and Texas. They've created a proven value-add system that has economies, has recognition for the employees, that has driven the results for the investors, and they've given back. They do rent-free Christmases, we've got your back-to-school backpacks, where they give out backpacks to all the kids in their communities, plus with all the supplies. They take the time to care, and I think when you look at that, you understand why, number one, their buildings perform better. They've taken what was an old profession, property management, and turned it on its head and raised the bar and created a property management group that loves and is excited about being innovative. And so they're incredible. The results have been nothing short of stellar. They've disposed of 28 of these properties, and they've averaged 31% annualized return, gross return, for their investors.
That's amazing. And I think one of the things that brings is they just now have the snowball effect of trust, and now they're able to syndicate faster, more widely. And I think from our perspective, what we really learned is, to be here long-term in this industry, you really want to be able to stand by something that has a lot of integrity, that has a proven track record, and people are very excited. But because of that knowledge gap, really being able to put people into placements where this team is going to really deliver is something that we've just been very excited about since meeting them.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons I went to TriView. TriView focuses on real estate, exempt securities. They don't deviate on a lot of other, but more importantly, they layer on tax strategies. They also have a trust solution for people that can't invest in the accredited investments. They offer another option to actually participate with these companies at a very low cost and better returns. So TriView was my choice. I did a lot of research in the exempt market dealer. They have credibility, they have accountability, they have a very strong management team with a lot of experience, and their focus is real estate.
Right. And so let's talk about real estate and technology. We've heard a little bit about some of the pain points you have here, talking about automation, onboarding, the workflow, but we're still fighting a massive paper system with lots of people touching different processes, and that's rapidly being transformed. One of the things I want to know is, in the next 10 years, where do you see kind of the future of real estate transacting and how people are going to buy real estate or real estate as an investment as it pertains to technology?
They're going to get a notice on their mobile phone because a lot of countries don't have it. This is going to make it accessible to people outside of North America being able to buy. It also will allow North Americans to buy anywhere in the world. They will have the ability to have all the metrics and understand why this is a deal that works for their objectives, because the education component will be enhanced. We'll be spending more time teaching than we will be on talking. And to me, that is the direction I'd like to go with it. I love technology. I think it's just an incredible tool to grow ideas, education, and reach. So for us, it's all about, let's leave a legacy that changes the way people do business in real estate.
Amazing. And I think, talking about legacy, you mentioned there was a woman out of West Africa, and you saw in Portugal, and I think REITIUM has a deep social mission, and to really bring real estate to everyone, right? On the top end, real estate to everyone. Underneath that is an amazing platform for private securities that will then allow us to really unload that vision. And as we serve the market, we're going to enhance all these brokers and dealers around the world to go through digital transformation. And once they do that, they're going to be able to service a wider customer base, cheaper, faster, better. And that customer base is going to include people who have as little as $100 or whatever money they have around the world. But tell us about this lady that you saw talk and how you really lit the fire for your own vision for social change and getting out there.
Yeah, so she could have easily taken her brilliance and her solutions and sold out to a Disney. And she chose to go and challenge the American power grid.
So tell us a bit more about her, just a little bit of background about her story and the example she gave you.
She was from Nigeria, and she created some patents. One was a soccer ball that the kids kicked around all day, and then they plugged in a light at night, so it gave them 3 hours of light to be able to read and get education. Because in Nigeria, they ran on kerosene and generators, and it was awful. And she said they're not going to get educated because they don't have light, they can't read. So she developed a soccer ball because one of the things that was common and happening in Nigeria that everyone had access to was soccer. Further to that, she went to refugee camps because she is about social change and serving the ignored and building infrastructure that is able to grow and be spread around the world to better improve the lives and the quality of the communities. And that was her goal, and she's delivering. Her company's Uncharted Powers. It is an amazing story, so I encourage anyone to go and check it out. Jessica Matthews. I was extremely impressed the fact that she stuck to her guns and said, you know what, I want to do this for the greater good, not for the money. And to me, that was very inspiring. It's similar to Janet LePage. Janet's idea is, let's make the communities that these people live in better. Let's make they do a lot of the value add, improve the properties before they even raise the rent, because they want people to live there. They want them safe, they want them comfortable, they want them to have amenities. They just want an improved community versus let's just run it and get the money and not do anything to it, which is the old way. So I think that is the direction. I know a lot of younger people believe that, and I think that is what I would like to encourage. And hopefully, I'm retiring soon, so at the end of the day, I want to leave a legacy, and I want it on a path that I believe will better the futures behind me.
Definitely. And I think when you came back from Portugal and you told us that story, it really helped us align, especially me personally, with my own social impact visions and what I go to work every day to really build this technology. Because what I see with technology, it's infrastructure, right? Now it's easier and quicker to be able to build a global infrastructure using technology than is bridges and tunnels and things like that. But what that does is I come from my home country of Kenya, and I see one of the most entrepreneurial countries in the world We had the first mobile money with M-Pesa, and we see how these things, when they go to the places where they need it most, the impact is so important. And what I also see is that you can make impact and make money. I think when earlier in my generation, when I was at university, you're either Greenpeace or you were sort of Goldman Sachs. There was no middle ground. But I think now there's the middle ground where you can be a conscious company that is making a profit but also serving the common good, and that ultimately really leads for a better life. So I'm very, very glad that we've aligned and we're able to go forward, and I think we're going to make a bigger impact in that way anyway.
Exactly. As long as you think, how much do we all really need? I think the greed component is going away. I think people are starting to look at, we want everyone to have a great life, and some of us will have a little bit more, but the gap between the rich and the poor has to narrow.
Right.
It has to narrow. That's for the good of the globe. Like I say that to everyone. I believe one of the stats I read, there are 52 million people in refugee camps.
Wow.
Around the world. So.
And then there's also the stats about a small percentage of 1% of the population owning 80% of the wealth. And one thing that we really see is that there is, to have a life that you can be proud of is not that you want to be a billionaire, but it is that you want participation. At least from where I come from in the world, is people want to hold their head up high and said, I had an opportunity, I had the ability to get in, and especially when it comes to real estate and land. I think one of the real deep secrets, even though we talk about it from an emotional sense, is the pride of ownership. If everyone on earth can say they own a piece of where they are, I think that is in itself will give people that mental clarity and health to say that I'm part of this, I own this, I can have roots, I can invest, and I can go forward. And so I think those are the type of things that balance out. But instead of doing a redistribution of wealth through any sort of force or government, you do it through just opening up and with crowdfunding and those type of things. And that's what I really like, because you're not fighting the tide of ideologies, you're just really giving people an opportunity.
And I just leave it with the fact that wealth versus stuff.
Right.
How much stuff do you want? And that's what clothes, shoes, cars, all that stuff.
Right.
Wealth is having choice. Wealth is being able to pass it on to future generations. Wealth is helping others. That's wealth. So I think in my family, I know that my children, I'm proud of them because I've raised them to believe that. But I grew up with not a lot of money, but I grew up with parents that were educated and believed in future, were optimistic, and encouraged us. So it was never about we didn't have. They always said, you have lots. You have family, you have the good environment, you're lucky you were born in Canada. They never looked at it where they were poor. So I think that it's an attitude. And we can't change anything but our attitude. We can influence, and we can have a good attitude.
Amazing, Cynthia. Thank you so much. This has been our great first podcast. I think that's really a good ending point to leave it on. But if there's anything that you can add, maybe what are you excited about right now or coming up in the next few months in the industry, and as it pertains to what we're doing together here?
I think this kind of door opening where we're going to get people allowed to invest with smaller bits of money to start their process from a very young age. It does compound. And,
right.
You look at the compounding factor. I bought my first property in 1984. It's worth close to $800,000. I paid $42,500. People go, oh yeah, that's way back in the day. You just have to believe that you'll invest today as long as you can hold it and own it. Values grow because the population of the world's growing, and depending where you buy, and that's part of our job, is to say, here are the economic fundamentals, here's where we think the market will have appreciation, cash flow, and we guide people and we help them understand that.
Amazing. Cynthia, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. I think this was an amazing, strong first guest, and we look forward to getting this out to everyone in the world, and really releasing REITIUM TriView IRR partnerships so people can start investing in real estate on their mobile phones and making this easier and better for the whole industry in general.
Thank you, Michael. I'm so impressed with your team and looking forward to the future.
Thank you so much.